Hello, Tamil America TV viewers. This is your Austin. So today we have an inspiring personality. We all heard about the story of Emperor's new clothes. So the emperor, who is greedy of getting a expensive clothes, he got two people. You know the story. So there, everybody saw this emperor naked, but nobody dared to say he's naked. Only there was a child. The child yelled and screamed and said, "Oh, emperor is naked." The same way, when you drive around, we see sign, men at work. It's a warning sign. We need to be careful. So today in America, something else at work. You need to be careful with a warning sign. Journalist and human rights activist Peter Friedrich has written his new book, Saffron, America, India's Hindu nationalist project at work in America. That's a warning sign. Let us directly go to him and get him and talk about his new book. At the end of the interview, I want everyone to click the description and buy his book. So we are going to give his book details in the description. Welcome, Peter. Thank you so much for joining for this interview.
Thank you, Austin, and I'm so glad to be here and to see you again. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm very good, Peter. I'm so glad to hear. I see your post. Of course, we need a person to yell that emperor is naked. We need a person put a sign, say something at work. Okay, let's go to directly go to what inspired you to write this book, Saffron, America.
Well, one of the direct inspirations came actually in 2015. I'm from California. I was born and raised in California. And the year after Modi became Prime Minister of India, he came for the second of his so-called rock star receptions in America, which was hosted in San Jose, California, not very far from where I lived. So I, along with a number of my friends in the Indian American community, went out to protest against Modi's presence at this event in San Jose. And I was there for the entirety of the day, probably at least a good 8 hours on scene. I was outside of this giant auditorium where there were tens of thousands of people inside who were living in America, but Modi supporters. And as is my want, because it tends to be my personality, I went off on my own. And I kind of wandered around as a rogue protester with my signs, just to see what was happening and express my displeasure with this man coming over and being celebrated in my, not only my country, but my home state. This man who was formerly known as the Butcher of Gujarat because of what he did in 2002, overseeing this pogrom of so many Muslims, and had now become Prime Minister of India. As I was exercising my First Amendment rights as an American citizen, and in protesting both a foreign leader, but not just any foreign leader, this type of a foreign leader, I was assaulted by Modi supporters twice. The first time was in full view of the police, who were probably about 20 to 30 feet away from me. And a Modi supporter ran up out of the blue and snatched one of my signs directly out of my hands and ran off. The second time, that first time was during the daytime in the late afternoon. The second time was in the evening when dusk had already fallen. And Modi was inside, and there was so many Modi supporters there that they had set up an overflow section outside in a park with a screen to beam to the outside everything that was happening inside. And just as Modi was coming on this screen, it was dark outside, I went and I had two signs again in my hands that I went and I stood up next to the screen silently, respectfully, but firmly holding my signs in protest to Modi's celebration there in my home state. And a very large man, and I'm not a particularly large individual, a very large man, probably maybe 3 times my size, began coming up and muscling up on me, shoving me with his body checking me. And as the crowd was watching Modi come on screen outside from, being beamed from the inside, this man whispered over in my ear, "I will break you." He told me, "I will break you," as he is physically assaulting me and shoving me with his body. And then within seconds, people ran out of the crowd, snatched away both of my signs. Police came up and escorted me out of the area. And that shocked me. I was already well aware of the issue of Hindu nationalism and of the problems with Modi and his background and the concerns about him coming to this top post in India. I was already well aware of many human rights issues in India. I had already spent a long time interacting with and engaging with, immersing myself with the Indian American community. But for me, as somebody that was born in California, not just my home country, but my home state, exercising the First Amendment rights, which I cherish, to protest against a foreign leader and a foreign leader who's accused of engaging in mass slaughter of minorities in his country, to be treated that way, assaulted twice, threatened, and to the extent the police had to escort me away, was a real wake-up call that for me as a white American Christian, there was no connection to India whatsoever at that time in particular, except the fact that I have so many Indian American friends and loved ones. It made me realize that it was time to start digging in a lot deeper to the issue of Hindutva, that is Hindu nationalism, to the background of Modi and the organizations that he springs from, that is the BJP, his political party, and the RSS, the paramilitary organization which groomed Modi to the position that he's in now. And from there to begin examining how it could be that there is such a huge support base for Modi here in America, in my home country, even in California, my home state. And so I set out to do that.
Sorry to hear about the assault. Even now, today, I saw a video of a man assaulted in the UK and during a parade. And that's very, very unfortunate, right? So these communal forces.
Yes, and we've been seeing it, not to derail, but, and just to brief a highlight, we've been seeing increasing examples in Australia, in the UK, in California itself, in Southern California last year, especially of assaults on Indian Americans or Indian diaspora members who happen to be registering dissent against the current Modi regime. So back to you, Austin.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter, for sharing that. Peter, when did you first observe the influence of this Hindutva ideology in America? And, they are at work. When did you find out this America, being saffronized?
I would say it began around about 2018. In 2018, this World Hindu Congress, so-called, was hosted in Chicago. And this event, the WHC, was organized by Hindu nationalist entities in America, primarily the VHP America, which is the US wing of the VHP in India, which is the cultural or religious wing of the RSS. This event was being hosted by them. This event featured speakers from the VHP America, speakers from the HSS USA, which is the American wing of the RSS back in India. It also featured as its keynote speaker the chief of the RSS back in India, Mohan Bhagwat, who ended up coming over and speaking at the event. But in addition to that, it featured quite a number of American politicians who joined as not just attendees, but also speakers at this Hindu nationalist event, which was taking place in Chicago. People like Congressman Raja Krishnamurti, people like then Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard was invited actually to be the honorary chair of the entire World Hindu Congress event, to be the honorary chair of this Hindu nationalist event being hosted in America. She ultimately backed out due to pressure, but there were a number of state legislators there, people, many of them whom I talk about in this book, people, if I recall correctly, like Padma Kupa from Michigan, Neeraj Antani from Ohio, and others, some of whom braved extreme pressure from people urging them to disassociate from this internationalist event, and forged ahead and joined it anyways. And so that was one of the things that really turned my attention to the concentrated efforts of the American Hindu nationalist movement. And from there, I was invited out to Chicago to participate in sustained protest against the event. And I joined the University of Chicago panel speaking about it and about what was happening in India, increasingly at that time in 2018, under the internationalist regime. And I was almost immediately targeted in a couple of articles that appeared in, as I recall, major Indian media, digital media outlets. I think the Print, for instance, may have been one of them, written by American Hindutva sympathizers, as well as by an American Hindutva sympathizer, a college professor at a college here in America, who also wrote an article about me. I was immediately targeted for protesting this event in Chicago, and accused of all kinds of things, but I was called out as a rabble rouser because I dared to raise my voice against American Hindu nationalism, American Hindu nationalist events taking place. From there, I, in that same year, turned my attention to this Congresswoman, Tulsi Gabbard. And I was alerted about her by one of her constituents out in Hawaii, who had begun tracing the money trail and wanted to warn me about it, and suggest that I try doing my own independent research and see if the money trail that they suspected was in place of tracing money from Hindutva affiliated personalities to this Congresswoman really was a money trail that held water. And I began doing that. And from 2018 onwards, I have not turned my head to look back. I have continued diverting almost my entire energies full time to researching, documenting, and exposing this network of Hindu nationalist entities on their influence in America, how it's served as a support base for the rise of the regime back in India, and now a propaganda mouthpiece for the regime back in India now that that regime has taken power. And after 2018, ended up as one of my first real deep projects, wrote a full comprehensive expose of Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, documenting from A all the way to Z in about 18,000 words, everything that she had ever done that I could uncover to interact with the Hindu nationalist entities, both in America and in India, to take money from people that belonged to those entities, to push policies in US Congress that supported the Hindu nationalist agenda back in India, and so on. And then from there, I ended up being referred by the grace of God, by a good friend, to this major progressive forward-thinking magazine in India called Caravan Magazine. I worked with them, and by about August of 2019, so I guess that will be 4 years ago this month, ended up publishing a cover article in their magazine about Tulsi Gabbard, and then continued from there on to do everything else that I could to uncover whatever else there was to uncover about this issue.
It was a very good journey, Peter. Let us jump into your book called Saffron America. Could you please
Yes.
tell our viewers, right, if they buy the book, what they can expect, how you organize the book, what's the content flow, what they can expect?
Yeah, the book is organized into 4 parts, Austin. So the first part is called The American Song Parivar. and Song Parvar, as I'm very careful in this book to preface, but to introduce everything in such a way that you don't have to be an Indian, you don't have to be familiar with any of these issues to understand what's going on, what's being talked about. Everything is slowly introduced. So I introduced this subject or this term of Song Parvar, which means family of organizations, and which is the catch-all term to describe this whole shadowy network, spidery network of Hindu nationalist groups, with the RSS at the top, and then others like the BJP or the VHP or the Save International, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I introduced that in this part one. I introduced the American Song Parvar, that is those Hindu nationalist entities in the US, which are direct corollaries of the primary Hindu nationalist entities in India, like the RSS in India. Here we have the HSS. In India, they have the BJP as the political party. Here we have the Overseas Friends of the BJP. In India, they have the VHP, the cultural wing of the RSS. In America, we have the VHP America, and so on and so forth. And this first part, the American Song Parvar, introduces this whole big picture idea of the Song Parvar, of this family of Hindu nationalist organizations, and then highlights and really kind of offers a summary introduction, chapter by chapter, to each one of the major ones which are at play in America, primarily the HSS, the VHP America, the Overseas Friends of the BJP, and Save International. From there, part two is about US politicians tied to Hindutva. And this part is really kind of the core of the book. It goes through chapter by chapter all of the real key politicians around the US who over the past several years have had deep and intimate ties with Hindu nationalist entities in this country. And I document, I pick out and I select politicians to discuss in each chapter based off of a series of three criteria. One is the funding that they've received from Hindu nationalist personalities in the US, and if that funding is one-off, or if it's large amounts over a long period of time, which demonstrates a pattern. Two, if they've attended or participated as speakers in Hindu nationalist events, like if they've gone to an HSS event or a VHP America event or an Overseas Friends of the BJP event, and especially did they do that once? Did they go as a speaker? Or did they do that multiple times over a long period of time, demonstrating a pattern? And then third, policy. I look at, once they're in office, have they done anything in their capacity as an elected official to push for some kind of policy or policies, or taken actions in some way in their capacity as an elected official that would benefit the Hindu nationalist movement in America or the Hindu nationalist agenda back in India. And I won't go through, of course, you have to read the book to discover who every single one of these politicians, but I talk about people that are or have been in US Congress, that are or have been in state legislature, in state senates, in state assembly, so in the upper and lower houses of state legislatures in multiple different states. I talk about somebody who's the current lieutenant governor of the state of Maryland. And I also, of course, talk about Tulsi Gabbard. Caravan Magazine graciously gave me permission to reprint my entire article about her. And then from there, part 3 out of 4 is about Hindutva and the White House. And so I go through, especially over the past couple of years, how the White House and the current Biden administration has dealt with and engaged with the issue of Hindutva. In some ways which are good, in most ways which are really not very positive at all. I highlight a few victories as far as engagement with the White House, which has led to, for instance, the retirement of the former acting ambassador to India, of the US's former acting ambassador to India, who had met the RSS while in India while in his official capacity, and then retired shortly after calls for his resignation were raised in the US. But I also go through ways in which the Biden administration has, unfortunately, despite calls from civil society groups in America who are opposed to Hindutva, despite those calls to avoid appointing people in America who have ties to Hindutva, I talk about how the Biden administration has overlooked those calls, ignored them, and gone ahead and appointed these individuals anyways. I talk about who those people are, the background of those people, that proves that they are hardcore, long-term personalities involved in the Hindutva movement, and so on and so forth. And I bring this all the way forward to just in the past 6 months or so, the appointment of a new ambassador, permanent ambassador to India, and talk about him and his promises, which are yet to be fulfilled, to make human rights a core part of India, or the US's engagement with India. I talk about also about Modi's recent visit to the US as recently as June 2023, and about the Hindutva groups who were taking advantage of that visit to yield propaganda bonanza as a result of it. And then in part 4, I talk about a few more positive things. I talk about ways in which people around the US have engaged in, or can engage in, resistance to the Hindutva movement. So I talk in some chapters more theoretically, dealing with some arguments that are floated by the Hindutva movement here in America in their defense, or to try and derail opposition to their activities. And then I also talk about a few specific campaigns which have been waged, which are either victories or which have been strong campaigns that have been waged in the past couple of years and made an impact in the struggle against Hindutva. And
Seems well organized, Peter. Go ahead, yeah.
That's the content of the book. Now, as far as what the reader can expect, what I would say the reader can expect is hopefully this: the best compliment that a reader, not of this book, but of a previous book, has ever given me, is that my reading reads like fiction. And, you know, as they say, truth is stranger than fiction. Well, for me as a writer, to be told that my nonfiction reads like fiction is one of the most amazing, encouraging compliments that I can receive, because that means to me that they found it engaging, they found it page turning, they found it exciting, they found it accessible. I've written something that I hope most readers will most places find to be as interesting as sitting down with a novel, perhaps a lot scarier because it's real world, however. And then especially, and I would emphasize this point, especially for somebody, as I mentioned earlier, for somebody who's not from India, who has no familiarity with these issues whatsoever. This is a book that you can easily get into and come away from having a very good beginning grasp, 101 about what is Hindutva, what is it doing in America, why is it terrifying what they're doing to India, and why is it terrifying what they're doing in America, and why should everyone who's an American, whether you're left wing, whether you're right wing, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Sikh or a Hindu or an atheist, whether you're Indian or you're from Africa or South America or anywhere else in Asia, or you're born and bred in the US, that anybody who lives in this country should hopefully be able to read this book, quickly understand the significance of what's being talked about, how it impacts our country, and why they as an American should be concerned.
Very well said. Left, right, or center, whether you are American or Indian, Indian American, or any other nationality.
This
right?
is one-on-one. This is an issue. This is about an issue which should be of concern to every patriotic American.
Yes. So viewers, who watch this, is a one-on-one on Hindutva at work in America. So if you are concerned, if you want to learn, so this book, he has narrated how he has organized the book. So we have the in the description, you have details where you can purchase the copy of a book. I'm very sure, Peter, those who watch this interview, they'll be much interested, right? So you very well narrated how you organize. I just want to know, like, who is your primary target audience? Who you are targeting through this book, and what kind of action or what kind of influence you want to have on the readers, and what the response you want to get from them.
Yes, well, the target audience is broad, but there's a lot of specific target audiences, a lot of different ones. Indian Americans, especially anybody in the Indian American diaspora who, or beyond in the English-speaking Indian diaspora in Canada and Australia and the UK, who has seen what's happening in India, is concerned about it, knows that there's some kind of a connection to their countries or to America, but doesn't know the exact details and is not sure exactly how to, to put it all into place and articulate it. This is the sort of thing that if you're in the UK and you've seen, as we saw in Leicester last year, as we've seen in Southall just yesterday, I believe. If you're in Australia, as we've seen there, we've seen violent attacks on people who are anti-Hindutva. If you're in Canada, I have people on social media all the time messaging me and warning me, red flagging me, because there's members of parliament in Canada, for instance, who are linked to these types of groups, to the Canadian wings of the RSS and of the VHP, because it's not just in America. This Hindu nationalist family that's based back in India with the RSS, BJP, etc., they have corollaries across many countries around the world, especially across countries like Canada, US, Australia, and the UK. This book highlights how they're at work in the US. And for anyone that's of Indian origin in the diaspora, especially in the English-speaking world, of course, this is the sort of thing that will give you a tool to begin to piece things together. And if you don't live in the US, help to work towards exposing the Hindu nationalist movement in your country. Or if you are in the US, give you a tool so one, you can put it all in one place, get that big picture. And then two, you have something that you can take to your member of Congress, you can take to your local state legislator, and put this in their hands to show them, because it's one thing to tell them that you're concerned about the influence of Hindu nationalist entities in America. It's another thing to show them that here's an entire book about it, and this is the only book that exists about this topic comprehensively right now. So certainly people like that, anybody beyond that who's in politics, who is interested in the issues of diasporas around the world, of immigration, anybody who's interested in issues of extremism. If you're interested in exploring issues of religious extremism, we have a huge problem in America, which we're trying to grapple and deal with, of increase in Christian nationalism or white supremacy. There's corollaries between Hindu nationalism and Christian nationalism. And if that's something you're interested in exploring, the broader issue of nationalisms and of extremism, this would definitely be of interest to you. If you're a Christian who's concerned about the persecuted church abroad, well, this book doesn't touch specifically on what's happening to the church in India, but the church in India is the most persecuted church in any legitimate major democracy in the world right now. And if you want to know how entities in America are supporting the regime back in India, which is behind that persecution, this is an eye-opener for you. So beyond that, I would really say anybody that's interested in promoting humanitarianism and exposing extremism, and in supporting the free and secular democracy of both India and America. And the last one I would say is anybody interested in the topic of foreign interference, because we've heard a lot about the issue of interference in US politics by Russia, interference in US politics by China, And yet nobody's talking about the issue of interference in US politics by India. It is a hidden reality. This book begins to peel back the mask and expose the reality of the interference of the RSS BJP regime in India, in American politics, and the interference in Indian politics of RSS BJP supporters who live in America.
You have a very wide range of target audience, and people interested in extremism, people interested in foreign agencies interfering with American politics. So now, on this topic, there may be books, or there may be a lot of books. Why people need to choose your book, and where they can buy your book? So, like, I want the viewers to hear from you where they can purchase a copy of your book.
Well, the reason, if you're interested in the issue, especially of Hindu nationalism, and especially the issue of how the Hindu nationalist movement or regime in India rose to power on the backs of its supporters who live abroad, if you're interested in that issue, then you need to buy this book, because it's the only book that exists about that topic. There is no other currently existing, comprehensive, popularly accessible book about Hindu nationalism in America, or about the way that the regime in India relied on that pillar of support provided by the Hindu nationalist movement in America. So if you're interested in that, this is a one of a kind. There's no other book like it. There's no competition on the market for that topic at the moment. Beyond that,
now, where the viewers can buy your book?
They can buy it at Amazon.com if you're in America. You can buy it on Kindle as an ebook. You can also buy it in print. It's $20 to get a print copy. It's about 370 pages long, 30 chapters. If you live outside of the US, if you live in the UK, buy it through your Amazon UK store, Amazon Canada store, if you're in Canada, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Buy it through your country's specific store. It's available in print and in Kindle, or on Kindle, via Amazon, in Canada, the US, Australia, the UK, most of Europe, and as many other countries as possible that Amazon services. If you're in India, you can buy it as print on demand through poti.com, POTHI.com. Or unfortunately, it's not available in print on Amazon India. But if you're in India, you can buy Saffron America, India's Hindu nationalist project at work in the US. You can buy it as a Kindle ebook on Amazon India.
Thank you, Peter, giving details about where they can purchase the book. So viewers, if you are watching this interview, please do purchase the book. And we are also having a link to purchase the book in the US, in America, below in the description. Kindly click that link and purchase the book today. And also you can give that book to your friends, your children. So your children living in the US, or children even in India, they want to come here and settle here, they need to know. So what is at work in America? And you may just close your eyes and say nothing happening. No,
that's I'm gonna jump right in there, Austin, because that's a great point, especially for the Indian American community. If you have kids, or if you have second generation, third generation, a lot of times, understandably so, your kids, I've heard this from many Indian Americans, the kids will grow up and the connection to the original home country of their parents starts to disappear, and they begin to wonder, why do I need to be concerned about what's going on over there? Well, as this book very clearly explains and exposes, what is happening in India, if you're an Indian American, impacts you, even if you're second or third generation, because it's coming, what is happening in America, the Hindu nationalist movement over there, and its violation of the human rights of religious minorities over there in India, is coming here, already has come here and touched on the shores of America. And so it's right here at home, it's right here in our backyard. This is impacting you today, even if you've never been to India, even if it was your grandparents that came over from India. The issue of Hindu nationalism in India is impacting you here in America, because that movement is in our backyard.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for that. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you, and you give detailed information. And viewers, if you're watching this, please do share this interview link with your friends and family. And we have the link for the book in the description. Kindly click the link and purchase. And as you said, the younger generation need to read it. Peter, before we wrap up, do you have anything else you wanted to add to our viewers?
The last thing I would add, Austin, is that this is a crucial time to take action on this issue because we are seeing no major forward progress. So I do, as I said, have a section where I document the resistance to Hindutva, which is growing, it's strident, it's forceful, but it's still too small. And the resistance to Hindutva, especially when it comes to our US Congress and to our US president, has not made the impact that it needs to make. We have members of Congress, we have almost no member of Congress who's willing to step out and be bold and courageous enough that refuse to be a coward and stand up and call out the fascism that's developing over there in India and stand against it. And one reason is because many of them have been influenced by the money and the votes and the pressure applied to them by these America-based Hindu nationalist entities. And the situation in India has gone from bad to worse to catastrophic from 2014 on to the present. The future is looking really grim right now. There's always a glimmer of hope, thank God, but we're not sure what things are going to look like. We're not sure when things are going to get turned around. And one way we can start, because we're living here on the other side of the world from India, literally in America, one way we can start is right here in our country, exercising our freedoms, our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly, our freedom of the press, to expose and undermine that Hindu nationalist movement in this country, which has served as such a crucial support base, is still serving as such a crucial support base for that fascist Hindu nationalist regime in India, which is threatening to destroy, to exterminate, to slaughter thousands upon thousands upon thousands of religious minorities and anybody that dares oppose it.
Thank you so much, Peter. It was nice talking to you, and you have given a detailed view about the book and the situation, right? Or the current Hindu nationalism in America, which motivated you, or which made you to write this book. And thank you for warning, people across the globe and America about this Saffron America. I appreciate your time, and thank you for joining me in this interview. Thank you.
Always glad to see you, Austin.
Thank you, Peter. So, viewers, so today we had an interview by activist and journalist Peter Friedrich, and we have in description his book's link, Saffron America, the Indian Hindutva Project at Work. Everyone need to read it because I have gone through the book and it has a wealth of information. He has done a lot of research from 2019 to 2023. His social action, different politicians, their connection with different Hindutva groups, and Hindutva groups operating here in the US, and he has given details. So please do click the link and buy this book and support. Tamil America TV is the #1 Tamil TV in America. So Tamil America TV initially, we have launched 3 years back, producing programs in Tamil. So now, we are opening up to produce programs in English as well. Of course, it was initiated to promote the Tamil talents in America. So now we have talk shows, we have panel discussion in English, and we are always a media partner for the oppressed and organization working for the oppressed. So if you if you are an organization working for human rights, if you're an organization working to defend democracy, defend humanity, we'll be always there on your side. So kindly support Tamil America TV, subscribe Tamil America TV. I'm looking forward to meet you all through another program. Nandri, vanakkam.